guess what I did? And no, I didn't go back to sleep. I bet you were thinking that because I've considered it so much throughout the day that I probably should have done, because I've not got really anything done. I'm tired. I feel better for lighting that wax melt downstairs. Oh my god, I just got really bunged up and I still don't feel great. It's probably because I've been up here like an hour. So I came up to put my phone on charge because it was like super low. And then I sat on my bed and I've literally not moved. But, so here's the thing. Two things. I'm sat here on my phone. This was after the second thing happened, but I'm going to just get this bit out of the way. So, like, really quickly. And I heard screaming outside like someone was being brutally murdered. And I think we all know by now who the noisy little bugger outside normally is. But normally when he screams like he's being murdered, it's a different type of scream. And it was like really loud. And I heard it like he was like hitting something. I thought, if he's hitting my car, I'm ringing the police straight away. I'm not putting up with this anymore. It's horrific. And I'm like, oh my god, what's happening? And I honestly, and I know I say that it normally sounds like he's being murdered, because it really does. I literally thought he was being brutally murdered on my path. It was that loud, and it went on for about 30 seconds, and I'm like, oh my god, what's happening? I dropped my phone on the floor. I was in a panic trying to like get onto the camera. And by the time I got on the camera, it moved away from the house with his friend. And you could still hear some screaming, but not the screaming that was going on. I was like, what's actually happened to him? I literally, honestly believed that someone was out there just brutally murdering him. Like, it was that horrific. And I'm like, oh my god. And like, his mum didn't even come out. His stepdad didn't come out. They didn't bother to come out. And I know he screams all the time like he's being murdered, but this was next level being murdered. Like, I've never heard anything like it. And they didn't even bat an eyelid. And I'm like, oh my god, it's like 7 o'clock at night. Some children are in bed at this time. But no, they don't do anything. So I'm sat here, and obviously if you hear something that sounds like someone's being murdered, your heart starts racing and stuff. So I'm sat here trying to buddy calm down, still thinking he'd been injured even though I couldn't see him, because he was still shouting and making a hell of a racket, and he was playing with like another boy. I think there was more than them two, but it was just them two making the noise, because one of them seems to try and match the noise. I mean, you can't match the noise. Literally no one's managed to match the level of noise he makes, but the other one was like making a lot of noise. And I was like, my heart was just racing. I felt sick, because I literally, honestly felt like something had happened. And they shouldn't just sit there and ignore it. They should actually have words with him and say, look, you shouldn't be screaming like that. Because one of these times he will get hurt and no one will actually think anything's happened, because he screams like he's being murdered all the time. So anyway, before that, if you remember, I will have kept it in. I said I got a really good car insurance quote, and it was like over £300 cheaper. I couldn't believe it. And I said, I'm due to get a quote off them, because obviously it's less than a month now. Just under a month. So sat here, get an email with my quote, and I'm like, oh, let's see what it is. Expected it to be very similar. I thought they were either going to be very similar and try and charge me slightly more, and I mean like £20 more, or they're just going to go over the top with the quote. Guess what they did? Not only have they put it up higher than last year, they can go to hell, they're trying to charge me another nearly £400 more. And I was like, what the hell? Why would I pay £400 more? I could almost buy it double. I could get it twice, kind of, nearly, if I did that. Like, why would I pay double from the same company? And they're actually, do you know how you get extras? Like, you can have legal thing and personal accident and like windscreen cover, and you can add all extras. I have everything except for the breakdown cover, which in hindsight should have had. But I didn't know I weren't going to drive my car for 5.5 months and then it was going to do what it did. But I sorted it out with a battery charger. Anyway, I'm still not going to get the breakdown cover because I'm actually going to buy it separate. Because when you read what you're getting offered for what you're paying, it basically isn't worth the money you're paying for it because you get next to nothing. And it's actually only slightly more to get a much better service, and you can add other cars to it. So I'm going to go direct with them. They do it via RACs, which is who I'm actually going to go with, because I actually, when I couldn't start my car, I read both the AA site and the RAC site in so much detail and worked out the RAC is the best one to go with, basically. So I'm not getting that, but I'm getting everything else. But when I read what they were quoting me for, do you know the one that they sent through? There weren't the key fob cover on, so do you know if you lose your keys, they're really expensive. Well, depending on what car you've got, if you had like a buddy, like if you had a Bentley, I mean, well, it wouldn't bother you how much it was, because if you could afford a new Bentley, it shouldn't bother you. But the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds, it depends on what type of car you've got and the way it starts. So I always like to have the key insurance, even though I've never once used it. It's handy to have, because anything could happen. You could bloody drop it down a bloody drain. I hope I'm not just tempted fate. Watch me a week from now. Oh, guess what I did? I dropped my key down the drain. So that isn't even on the policy that they're offering me, and there was something else on it that I normally get that they've not put on. So that just goes to show, please, if you get car insurance, not only when you first get it, add everything on. You definitely need to get fully comp. Don't get third party, because you'll have a lot of money to pay yourself if you only got third party. Also, make sure you get all the extra legal protection, all the personal accident protection. What else is there? The key fob thing. Get that. Windscreen's pretty much standard, but some of them don't offer the windscreen cover, which is weird. So make sure you've got that. Just make sure you tick everything except for the breakdown cover, because basically what you're paying for isn't worth the money that it's written on. It's very limited. But if you buy it from them direct, yes, it's more money, but you get a better service and you can add other people's cars, so you can split the cost if you want to. So I used to always get the breakdown cover, and this is the one year that I didn't get it, and I needed. Well, they would have come out, and I probably would have ended up having to pay on top of what I paid anyway. But it's always handy to have. But I've never once broken down ever. I mean, it's been touch and go if I'm gonna run out of fuel. There was once. Sometimes, I haven't done it for a long time, sometimes I like to live on the edge a little bit, and when it says I've got 20 miles left, I try and do about 40. Oh, and there was one time, honestly, I think I was running on fumes, and I don't know how I got to the petrol station. And there was there's been times when it's just like, and do you know what's funny? The fuel that's in my car has been in my car for many, many months because I've not put any in. And if you remember, right at the start of lockdown, I filled it up because fuel went super cheap. So I filled it up expecting to have used it at some point. And when I was in it the other day, there's still a quarter of a tank left. And I've done 230 miles. And I'm like... And also, it's round town driving, which you normally get less miles per gallon. I don't even know what a gallon is. I know what a litre is, but I don't know what a gallon is. Oh God, you're all going to crucify me, aren't you? Not knowing how much liquid's in a gallon. But what is a gallon? I don't know. But what is a gallon? Does anyone use gallons? I'm just going to go and have a gallon of water. What is a gallon of water? Is it 5 litres or something? Oh God, I bet that's really badly wrong. Anyway, I'm still driving around on that fuel, and I keep thinking, I'm going to fill it up. But because I keep going to the shop super late, I was going to get some from Asda last week, but by the time I left Asda, it was 9ish or going up for 9, because I want to do my tyres, pump them up. And I wouldn't mind doing it at that time of night as long as it's not raining. But because I was so tired and I had enough, and I've got to go home and I've got to unpack it and I've got to put it away and I've got to eat, I was like, no. And I like to do my tyres at Asda because it's still only 20p there. Everywhere else, it's £1. Well, I know of one other place that is 20p. Well, it was the last time I went, and I've not been there since February. but I really want to put my tyres up. Even though obviously I've not really been driving and my car's been stood outside, I still want to see, like, well, they're not down. I can tell when they go down, because it's funny, like, I'll say to my dad, oh, I feel like the back driver's side's down a little bit. And I'll go and I'll check them all, and that'll be the only one that's down a little bit. And my dad's like, how can you tell? And I'm like, I can tell when I'm driving. He's like, oh, I don't ever know. And it's like there's times when I go and they're all really down and it don't feel any different to me. And I'm like, it does feel different because it drives differently. Anyway, I sent Tesco a message basically saying, I'm not going to renew with you because unless you match the quote. I told them how much the quote was, and I said, I've got a quote from another insurance company that's around the same price. I think it's like £40 more. And I never said like it's £40 more. I said it's a similar price, because £40 more is a similar price. And I said, I'm going to go with them if you don't match the quote that you gave me online. And I said, I don't know how you can justify what you've done. Do you think I'm not going to get quotes beforehand? Because obviously, and on the quote it reckons, because it says it picked up that I have a club card, and it says that I've got a discount because of the club card. I mean, what, a nearly £400 discount? But yeah, so I said, like, if you don't match it, I'm just going to go elsewhere. But I'm not. I'm just going to buy the Tesco car insurance and make sure that they don't take a payment for the one that I've got now, if that makes sense. But I've sent them an email anyway, so if they do take a payment for the one they're trying to give me, I've got proof that I've said to them I don't want it. Because I said, and I don't know why you think you got the right to automatically renew someone's insurance when you don't even know if they want it or not. But they're allowed to do that now. Do you know what happened last year? I can't remember who I'm with because I'm change every bloody year. But you go where it's cheapest. If you could get the insurance that you want and get all the extras that you want, and it's cheaper than who you're with and what the quote they're giving you, of course you're going to go cheaper. Why would you pay £400 more for the same policy you can get online for bloody £400 less? Like, why would you do that? And I've never once, like, gone to an insurance company and say, can you match what I've got online from another company? Because I just can't be bothered. If it's a reputable company, if they've got good feedback and good, like, you know, a high quality feedback, then of course you're going to go with them. You're not going to go, oh, hold on, I'll stay who I'm with and pay £400 more. And also, I think even if you're a millionaire, why would you be so stupid? Like, I know a millionaire, right? And he's the tightest millionaire you'll ever meet. He likes deals and bargains. And if you ever met him, you wouldn't ever presume he's a millionaire because of how he dresses and how tight he is. He's notoriously tight. One night, this was a few years ago, I was out with my dad and a friend for a meal, and this millionaire, the tightest, well, do you know what? A lot of millionaires are really tight and stingy. And we're out having this meal, and when we walked in, because I think we went somewhere else first, and I don't think we'd booked a table. It was going to be ages until it came, so we was like, right, we're going to go such and such. So we got a taxi up to where it was, and the millionaire was sat at the bar, so I went in and like tapped him on the shoulder and went and stood at the opposite side to where they were going to turn around, and they were really surprised to see us, but they didn't want to join us. And we sat having the meal, and he sent over 2 bottles of champagne. So me and my dad, knowing him really well, were like, there's no way he's just paid full price for these. How the hell has he done this? Because we know what he's like. So it turns out, and after he did this, because it's his local as well, it's his local place where he goes, after he did that they've put this as a condition now, that you can't do this. So basically the offer was, buy 1 bottle of wine, get 1 free. And he basically said that champagne is just, it's wine. In a way, it is. And he basically talked them into, it wasn't like the most expensive bottle of champagne. I think it was like a £30 bottle or something like that. So he was like, and then he also got a discount on top of this. I don't know how he did it. Because he come over and he told us what he'd done, and he basically conned them into 2 bottles of champagne for the price of 1, plus then he got another discount on top of it. So now when they do the wine offer, which I don't think they've done for a long time. But after that, anytime they did it, and I think it had to be a wine over a certain price as well, they basically put exclude champagne on it because of what he did. And I'm not a really champagne fan, to be honest. I think he had about one glass. And of course, as soon as the champagne opens, he's over wanting to share it, and he basically drank one to himself. And he got absolutely paralytic, right? But he's one of those where he's paralytic and you can't really tell. And he was meant to come out for lunch with us the next day. He was going to go back there the next day. And he was basically that night telling us how much he'd had to drink and where he'd been. And next day, we kept ringing him, there was no answer. So we went to his house and couldn't get an answer at the house and sat in the car. And his wife came home, she come up to the window. And she's like, oh, why are you here? We're like, oh, we've come up, we're picking him up. He's coming out for lunch. She's like, oh, he were up when I left. I did try and wake him. And I went, and I shouldn't have done it, but me being really open and, like, saying too much, went, it's probably the 19 pints and bottle of champagne and half a bottle of wine he had last night. She's like, he had what? And I was like, well, that's what he told us. She's like, oh, is that right? And, like, laughed about it. And she's like, well, it doesn't sound like he's coming out for lunch today. And I'm thinking, well, I probably wouldn't get over a week if I drank all that, to be honest. So off we go. We're having lunch, and then my dad wanted to go to another pub, and I didn't. So I'm driving him there, and his friend rings up. And he's like, why the hell has Melanie told my wife, I'm not naming her on the internet, that I drank all that yesterday? He's like, well, Roy, you told us all what you drank. He's like, well, why did she tell us? She went, well, she was just talking to her. Like, she didn't do it, like, to, like, get you in trouble. Because honestly, when I told her, she thought it was funny. Little did I know, the laughter was hiding absolute anger as she went inside, made him get up and went ballistic at him. And he weren't happy at me. And he thought I'd done it to get him in trouble, but I hadn't. I was just like, when she was like, he's not up, and I'm like, oh, it's probably because of what he drank. Like, because it would have been a miracle for most people to get up after that. And he did say that that's what he drank. And my dad was like, you actually did tell us that's what you drank. And he's like, well, she repeated it. She's not meant to repeat it. She's like, well, it's like, how's she meant to know what she's not meant to repeat? She didn't know it was a secret. And then his wife must have walked in the room. And he's like, well, I was only joking. I didn't drink that amount. I wouldn't be up today, would I? He said, I only had a couple of pints and one glass of champagne. And I was like, you had a full bottle. He's like, yeah, I just had one glass from the bottle. That's right. Anyway, he was furious. Absolutely furious. But I just said it innocently, like, that's probably why he's not up. Like, I didn't, like... And also, they're married, but they're not married, right? Everyone thought they were married. And all of a sudden, after everyone thought they'd been married about 20 years, they suddenly got married. And everyone presumed that they were married because she had taken his surname because they had a daughter together, but she already had 2 children, so she changed everyone's surname so they all were matched. So everyone thought they were married. So, not being stupid, she basically managed to get him to marry her because he had made all the money. She had not worked for years and years and years. Everyone calls her a lady of leisure, which she is, but she hates it. Someone called it to her face and she flipped. But she is a lady of leisure. She gets money for doing nothing, and she lives a really good lifestyle. But also, she is quite cheap with her money, and she does things that I think is wrong. She pretends she's not got enough money. Like, she'll go to things, and she'll be like, oh, I'll see, I'm going to cop up, see if I can afford a drink. And she's like pulling up in like an 80 grand top of the range Evoque, brand new, and she's like, oh, I'm coppering up. So, like, when me and my dad are, like saying something about things, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to cop up, see if I can afford it. He's like, oh, you might have to get some pennies off some other people to make sure you've got enough money. And we just make a joke of it because she's always coppering up. we've seen her copper up so many times, it's ridiculous. And she gets people who've not got much money spare to like either contribute towards a drink or actually buy a drink. And that's probably why she's got loads of money, because she doesn't spend it all. Anyway, that's how you, like, wine, champagne is a wine, basically. So if you ever see that offer anywhere, you can argue with them that it is a wine. So if you want 2 bottles of champagne, and champagne isn't all what it's cracked up to be, it's just, oh god, the really dry ones are horrible. Oh. But I've learnt to like mix it with something. Anyway, I can't remember how I got onto that, but yeah, I'm not paying nearly £400 more for the insurance. So if they don't match it, I'll say, well, cancel it, and I'll just buy another policy with them for the same bloody car. I think it'll work. I mean, I don't know, it wouldn't work. It's just buying the policy again. But for cheaper, why would I pay another nearly £400 more? And that was on paying monthly. I'm paying it off in one go. So they tend to put like it'll be like £120 more because it's on monthly. But it still makes it like around £300 more. Why would I pay another £300 more? And it doesn't have the cover on for the keys, and I think there was something else it weren't covering. So whatever, like, I'm just not bloody dealing with them. If they come back going, oh, we can't match it, or we'll knock it down 100, I'll be like, well, no, after, I'm not going to renew, do not renew my insurance, and that'll be it. And then what I'll do, I'll go on and buy the quote sooner. I'll buy it straight away. As soon as, if they don't come down to the price I want, I will buy it before the price goes up. Because what normally happens, right, this is what happens to me every month. So at the start of the month, I'll go on, get the quote, and it'll be a decent quote. Or sometimes it'll be way too high, and I'll be like, right, I'll check it next week. And at some point in the month, it will come down to a really reasonable price, and then I'll load back thinking, what if it comes down more? And generally what happens is it don't come back down more, it'll generally go up a little bit, or sometimes a lot, and then like the day before or 2 days before, it'll drop a little bit. You know, because it's gone up a bit, it'll drop a little bit, but it won't be as low as the quote that I thought was a good quote. And that's normally what happens every year, that I literally buy it like an hour before it's due. Well, I think it runs out at even 9 a.m. on 12 p.m, one of those. I think it's 12 it runs out at, so I need it to start. Well, you can start it at any time. If you've got 2 insurance policies running concurrently at the same time, you can't claim on both. You can only claim on one of them, so you just claim on whichever you want. So sometimes they overlap by 12 hours, because some of them like start at midnight and the other one will end at 12 o'clock lunchtime. So you've got 2 running together. So you basically, if you had an accident at like 9 a.m, you basically what you do is you claim on your old insurance that's about to run out, because if you claim on your new insurance and it's a really bad accident and you've caused it, they can then put your premium up straight away. Whereas if it's your old premium, they can't put it up because you're at the end of at the end of it. So a little bit of a tip of the day for you, in case you're planning on an accident. I mean, I wouldn't get into an accident because you might get hurt. So yeah, I'm not happy with Tesco. I'm not happy with him screaming blue murder and them not stopping him. It's really ridiculous. It was sounding like he'd gone absolutely mental out there, because I heard him banging stuff into something, and I thought, if that's my car, if I go out to my car tomorrow and there's any kind of marks, I'm going to go back on the camera, find when he's done it, and I'm going to ring the police. I'm not going next door and telling her, because she'll deny it. She'll get aggressive with me. She's so aggressive. So I will just go straight to the police, because they won't deal with him. They won't stop his behaviour. She actually encourages it by watching him and not saying anything. If anyone's brave enough to say anything, she denies that he's done anything, and he never seems to get punished. How's he ever going to learn? And I'm not saying like punish your children just because they've done something, but you need to tell your children what's right and wrong and stop them if they're doing something. If he's out there screaming like that, they should look at the time and think, well, it's 7 o'clock, there's going to be young children in bed. There's going to be people who are doing night shifts who are probably still in bed till like 8, 9 o'clock if they're starting at 10 or whatever. You know, most decent parents would be like, they'd go out there, go up to them and go, if you carry on screaming, you're coming in. Or they'd just take them in and then tell them inside and say, right, you're in for tonight. If you do that again tomorrow, you'll come in every time. You can't act like that. But they're not telling him to behave. It's obvious they're not, because his behaviour is actually getting worse. And I'm not surprised he's so aggressive, because she's really aggressive.